Is there a business case for flourishing? In other words, is there a return on investment when an organization invests in developing a flourishing, healthy workplace culture? Find out in our next episode with Dr. Wayne Hammond. I'll see you there. You're listening to the Flourishing Workplace Podcast, a movement to reimagine work brought to you by thought leaders and industry professionals. Discover how to create cultures where people belong, grow, and contribute fully. At Flourishing Workplace, we're changing the world by changing the workplace. Hey, everybody, welcome back to our next episode of the Flourishing Workplace Podcast. We're so privileged to have Dr. Wayne Hammond with us again today. Thanks, Dr. Wayne. And, if you missed our last episode, please make sure to check it out. In that episode, we actually spent a little bit of time unpacking Dr. Wayne's journey towards flourishing. So as a psychologist, what led him to kind of emphasize and focus that, and what were some of the things that he discovered along the way. Today, I'm super excited to continue our conversation, particularly around what happens when organizations and teams embrace the mindset of flourishing. And, of course, we're called Flourishing Workplace, but Dr. Wayne has an unbelievably extensive resume when it comes to working with teams and organizations. And so, is it possible for an organization to philosophically adopt a flourishing mindset, or is that all just something that happens individually?
Well, I think there's a saying out there that, culture eats strategy for lunch concept. So cultures are built,
Right.
but they're built in relationship.
Okay.
So I don't think that you can sort of demand something from people. I think a lot of people learn about what a flourishing culture is like by how people treat them,
Right.
how they get to experience things. And leaders who move away from more the concept of I'm going to manage you and make sure that you're successful to more of I'm going to be more of like a coach. I'm going to prime you to have experiences, to be part of something. I want to know what's important to you, how you might see things moving forward, but it's more relational.
Okay.
It's very much about, and I can go into the brain science around how when people move into an environment where they feel like, hey, this is threatening. If I make a mistake, I get called up in the carpet or whatever the case might be. There's that amygdala part of our brain that moves into defense mode. And when you trigger that in a person in a work environment, it doesn't settle down for 6 hours. They're just still going to be defensive.
And that's like most of the day for a lot of people.
Exactly.
6 hours, right? Yeah. Yeah. Keep going, please.
So I think it's more about if you're going to talk about a flourishing culture, there's things that can guide it, but it's experienced.
Okay.
And that's really what keeps the momentum going, because people then have a sense of, I like going to work. This is where I get to thrive. Yeah. This is where I get to try new ideas. This is where I get to do what I do well, but I'm also getting better at it through other ways. And I like working with people because other people have strengths that I don't have. And when we work together, we get to try things we've never done before.
It's interesting because I remember when I started my career so long ago, and I had this boss at that time, and his whole philosophy was, man, we got to keep them on their toes all the time. It was almost like, even though this wasn't a military environment, I've never been a part of the military, that in this guy's mind, he was the drill sergeant, and all of us were the privates. And he wanted to keep us in that fear amygdala state. Somehow he believed that that would create better performance. And I'd love you to speak to that. I mean, it's really interesting. You mentioned the brain science behind this and what does happen to somebody's effectiveness when they're in that place. And as leaders, obviously, the only controllable is how we relate to either trigger that or to create that safety. So maybe speak to that, please.
Yeah, well, as I said, it's a relational concept. So you can have a leadership that says, this is what has to happen, and this is what I expect, and this is what it should look like. Well, all of a sudden you've told somebody, hey, if you don't do this, then you're not important here. You're not of value here. So the person's going to be very cautious. They're going to be apprehensive about whether they're actually meeting those goals and actions. So my idea is that really good leadership is really about being curious,
right?
Asking good questions. Oh, you did that. I know we discussed something different, but you chose that. I'm kind of curious about why that was important to you and why you thought that would be, because maybe we're missing something here. Another example might be is, hey, we need to get together on Monday morning because something's happened and you need to be at the meeting. Well, that person's going to be worrying all weekend was I the fault? Was
Mhm.
I the one that's going to be brought up and, challenged? As opposed to, hey, we've got some really interesting things happening that we can learn from, and I need you there because you've got some really interesting thoughts.
Right.
We're going to find the right solution. So
Right.
thanks, and let's look forward to it. Well, the person spends the whole weekend looking forward to the meeting.
Right.
So it's all about how we ask questions, how we interact with people, how we invite them into the journey of the larger organization.
Mm.
But leadership needs to mentor what it actually means to be strength-based.
Mhm.
And then that gets back to the whole concept. And I'm just a big believer in how our brains work.
Mhm.
And, we have this survival part of us that kind of kept us well for the last, whatever, 10,000 years.
Mm.
But we're living in a very challenging world. It's
Mm.
fast.
Yeah.
It's chaotic.
Sure is.
There's lots of things happening that are unpredictable.
Mhm.
And if you have a leadership that says, "Hey, we're going to be okay
Mm.
because together we're going to find the right solutions. We're going to find the right pathway forward."
Right on.
And it's about inviting people to be part of that success.
Yes.
Well, that calms the
Yes.
brain down.
Yeah.
That gives the brain chance to be creative.
Yeah.
It gives the person ability to say, "Hey, I don't have to be perfect. I just need to be trying things in such a way that aligns with the expectations of the organization, but we conduct it in a respectful,
Mhm.
creative, innovative, progressive way.
Mhm.
And it's okay to make mistakes
Mhm.
because that's how we learn. It's
Right.
just what we do with it."
Yeah.
And we work together and support each other. Psychological safety is sort of like I kind of talk about change like a tree.
Mhm.
You know, how a person sees their personal well-being and self-care and how they think about themselves is the roots of the tree.
Mhm.
And if they're well established and they also then start to develop those supportive relationships in their
Mhm.
work and personal life,
Mhm.
all of a sudden now they're in a position to grow the branches,
Right.
which is how we learn.
Right.
Do I learn by stepping out of my comfort zone? Do I try things, new innovative ways of doing things? Or do I also what am I doing well that I should do more of?
Right.
Or what should I maybe learn more about in order to get better at what I do?
Mhm.
Well, then you move into the ability to start practicing your soft skills.
Right.
And your soft skills are actually those types of skills that allow you to do your hard skills exceptionally well.
Mhm.
And if you don't develop your soft skills, you're going to struggle because it's your soft skills that allow you to navigate this fast changing world or challenging situations in a way that you will create success.
Right. Right. And so, what would be a couple of behaviors? I mean, you mentioned asking questions.
Mm.
Can you think of other behaviors or offer other behaviors that a leader could employ that would create that level of psychological safety?
Yeah, like for example, I think anytime that maybe you got a project and you want to, hey, how are we going to get there?
Mm.
And you could come in and tell your team, this is what you need to do.
Mhm.
And I hired you with certain skills and practices, and you all need to kind of get your act together and come together.
Right.
Or you could invite a question to say, how could we get there?
Mhm.
Now the team's brainstorming
Yeah.
on ideas and
Mhm.
concepts.
Mhm.
And so who will do what?
Mhm.
And so the person at the front, the leader, is guiding it.
Mhm.
It's almost like a conductor in an orchestra. You're
Yeah.
bringing all the different instruments together and you're creating this symmetry
Mhm.
that and what we have found in the research is that when people feel like they're part of something, that
Yeah.
they're actually bringing their ideas to it,
Mhm.
and there's sort of a mutual agreement on that's a good idea and how we could move forward, they're much more motivated. They're more willing to step out and do their part
Yeah.
because there's sort of a mutual consensus that I was part of that, so I need to be
Yeah.
in the game, taking it to the success that we think it have.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like two approaches. One is managing and demanding. The other one's about creating some common consensus
Mhm.
and bringing that unique group of skills together in such a way that you're actually going to create a success that would
Mm.
never be possible
Mhm.
before. Much more adaptive, much
Mhm.
more creative,
Mm.
and innovative in light of some of the demands that businesses are faced with.
And so, Dr. Wayne, one of the tools that you've utilized and have developed is called the Flourishing Advantage. You can find more at flourishingadvantage.com. But tell
Yeah,
us a little bit about the Flourishing Advantage. What's happening there?
yeah. Instead of sending your staff away to a workshop and then
Mhm.
coming back and then okay, I learned some new ideas and nobody else is aware of it.
Mhm.
Um, the flourishing advantage is really a relational approach of how do we hear the story of every staff?
Okay.
Where are they at in their journey?
Mhm.
And so we have a questionnaire that creates a profile that everybody is sort of invited into their own personal journey,
Okay.
as well as its implications for their professional role.
Mhm.
But we also have this ability then to roll up those stories into trends
Okay.
that managers in a department or part of the organization would say, here's my team.
Mm.
here's all the mindset orientations. And we measure 4 mindsets. One is sometimes people are in survival mode. They're just trying to get through the day. Some have a protecting mindset. Something's happened. Trust is not an easy concept for them. Therefore, it has to be somebody purposely coming alongside. I know you're feeling anxious, but I'm glad you're here. Let's go forward. And then you got your strivers, which oftentimes is very common amongst staff. They're actually fairly talented. They were hired for a reason and do great success, but they don't like to step out of their comfort zone because they're afraid that somebody's going to punish them, or they're going to make a mistake and disappoint people, or whatever the case might be. And ultimately, what we want is thrivers. It's kind of like, bring it on. I got this.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do it in a respectful, collegial way, and we're going to be able to create success. And they oftentimes, as the thrivers, are very interested in making sure that people are part of the journey and want others to be successful, because they see that as, hey, I need to give back.
Awesome.
So we have that idea of the individual stories. We bring it up into trends, so departments can actually take a look at where we at and how are we moving forward. And then we also measure the overall organizational culture.
Okay.
What are the traits of it? And because people can't grow their potential to flourish unless the environment is nurturing it or giving them permission and supporting them. And so we kind of measure those 3 different things, and then we provide that organization with feedback at those 3 levels.
Okay.
And so people are growing, leaders are leading a different way, but then the organizational culture is saying, if we create this type of a atmosphere, a way of thinking, a way of doing, and a way of supporting, our return on investments will look after themselves.
It's fantastic. I mean, I think ultimately one of the big challenges in leadership, just in general, if I can be honest, is sort of measurement. And I think the part of the reason for that is, as a leader or an executive or a team lead, I'm bringing my perspective to it. You're bringing yours. So you have employee A and employee B, and I have my thoughts about her, and you have your thoughts about him. And, it's not that 1 or 2 of those are wrong, but what I do think is important is, how can we find a baseline that hits sort of all of us? And then once we understand that sort of culture baseline, how do we collectively work to improve it? Because like you said at the start of this episode, I mean, culture does eat strategy for breakfast or for lunch. And how many companies do we all know have an incredible strategy on paper, but the problem is execution? Now, it's not always about culture, but a lot of the time it's about a healthy workplace culture. So make sure, friends, you join us in our next episode, where Dr. Wayne is going to break down for us in more detail how we can create that healthy workplace culture in a way that's sustainable. And so, Dr. Wayne, how could somebody find out a little bit more about what you're up to, or find out more about the Flourishing Advantage?
Yeah, well, they can certainly come to our website. That's www.flourishingadvantage.com. Or certainly email me at wayne@flourishinglife.com.
Okay, so flourishingadvantage.com, friends, please do check that out and get a little bit more insight in terms of how you can measure and build healthy workplace culture. And in our next episode, Dr. Wayne's going to be right back so we can drill into this a little bit further. Thanks, everyone. The movement for better workplaces starts with one action: yours. Thank you for listening to the Flourishing Workplace Podcast, and keep thriving. At Flourishing Workplace, we're changing the world by changing the workplace.